Just to start, you're a writer, a director, a producer, an actor, and a host. Is that everything, or do you run a craft services business as well?
Funny enough, I have worked in craft service before. That was one of my first gigs.
So you're a jack
Yeah.
of all trades. So I'm just
Hey.
curious about how the imagineNATIVE Institute Screenwriting Features Lab, how did that help you get to the point where you could produce a first feature?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of it gives you the motivation to get things done. I think a writer with a deadline is a good thing. Because I did Ruthless Souls I produced Ruthless Souls a couple years ago. I think 2019 is when we released it, and um, I knew I wanted to do another feature, but I wanted to do it in comedy. And you're always bouncing back and forth, and it's a genre that I usually do television series and web series, so it's a lot shorter content and a lot more fast paced to an extent. Like you have about 30 minutes to ask for your audience's attention to tell a story. With a feature, it's a lot harder because you're asking for about an hour and a half of the audience's attention, and I always say that's a lot of time that you're asking for. So you better I want to make sure that everyone's enjoying the story and having a good time and enjoying themselves for that period of time. So imaginative, you kind of have. I didn't really have a story to. I didn't have an idea really of like, okay, this is my next feature. It was kind of Lucky Strikes kind of just fell into my lap because it was we're kind of still in the pandemic. There were still like restrictions and shutdowns and stuff, and the sport that I played called handball, they were shut down, like you couldn't play. And so my buddy was like, hey, do you want to come be in my bowling alley and my bowling team for bowling? And I was like, well, I've never done that. Like, I mean, I've bowled, but I've never been a part of a team. And okay, what is this? Sure, yeah, why not? Gives me out of the house on a Thursday night. And so uh it was about 3 or 4 weeks into the whole bowling league, and I was looking around and I was like, look at all these characters. Like the group beside us was the elderly gentlemen, and they had their Thursday night hangout group with their guys, and they had all their like special bowling lotions and towels to wipe their balls and special shoes, and like they invested a lot of money in it, and you could tell it was just like this was their home, their cult, their culture. And I was like, this is an interesting environment. And I was like, I haven't, and I was thinking, like, I haven't seen a comedy, like a bowling comedy, other than Kingpin, in a while. And so I think there's a TV series that just came out, but I was like, there's got to be something here. There's got to be a story here, like an Indigenous person trying to buy a bowling alley. Like, who would try to buy a bowling alley? And I love the stories of misfits and schemers and people trying to get rich quick and all that kind of fun stuff. Like, those stories are super fun. So I was like, maybe there's something here. And then the Imaginative Features Lab came out, and I was like, well, one and one, I'll, put the application together, quickly write a scene. And usually, like, because when you come up with ideas, for me, you usually have one scene that's sticking out. And that was the easiest to write. Like, I was like, I'm going to write that scene and apply to the program with that. And forgot about it. I was like, it's like when you audition, right? You kind of like, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm not going to get too wrapped up in it. And I think it was like I woke up to an email. It was like, hey, Darcy, congratulations. We want you to be part of the lab and develop this feature together. And yeah, it was a quick process. I think it was a little bit faster than the timeline that imagineNATIVE had, because I knew that but the way Canada works is that we have application deadlines to get funding. And so I knew I had to write a feature in, like, I think 2 months, um, from no idea to your full idea, to your first draft, to go after the talent to watch program. And yeah, it was crazy. Like the show that I wrote a year ago, is not the same show that I just finished the other day. It's very different. It's like gone through a lot of revisions and stuff like that. But without imagineNATIVE, I think I'd still maybe not. I don't know. You never know. You could say that I wouldn't have written anything, but I don't think it would be the script that I have right now, because it went through a lot of revisions and it went through a lot of mentors that were able to help me out and talk to, like, hey, maybe do this, and maybe make your characters more active. And So it's kind of like that's how I got into the imagineNATIVE Features Lab program.
So just, I'm curious about the hands-on process of getting into a program like that, and talent to watch. People all the time, they have great ideas. They want to break into the industry. Of course, funding is always a hard part. So, what kind of prep goes into that? How long does the process take, and how would someone who wants to follow that path, like what would they have to do to make a submission?
Yeah, so I always plan a year ahead for the talent to watches or any kind of feature because it takes about that's what long how long it takes to get your application ready. So about this time last year, I had um the script ready. Let's say, okay, so next year around this time, or around in April, is the next theoretically the next opening for the talent to watch program. So if I was to give anybody advice, I would be like, start now. So if you're thinking about it and you don't have a script, with like from now till December, you have to write your script and make sure you have a first draft and a second draft and it's a little bit polished. And then have like January, February, March to kind of polish your all the other things. So you'll need like a budget, like a pitch document, which your pitch document is basically kind of your summary, and it's your selling package where it's like, hey, this is the show, the characters, this is me, this is my statement of how I want to, this is my vision of the show. And that's kind of your pitch package. It kind of sells someone before they read the script. And so and then I think the application part, because there's a two-step process to get the talent to watch. You have to apply to an industry partner, and their job is to kind of sift through all the applications and then nominate somebody to Telefilm, which is the funding body, the feature funding body for Canada. And then they kind of give you the second approval. Then you're like, hey, I'm fully funded for my $250,000 to do your feature. And so yeah, and depending on what you're doing, you can do it with two people. Like it's you could be the writer director and then bring on a producer. If you're within the Indigenous program, it's 2 out of 3, so you have to have at least an Indigenous person in 2 out of 3 top positions, writer director producer, to get funding. And I don't know if it's changed or it's, but I would definitely read up on the guidelines. So it's always kind of like, I would say it's about a year to kind of put everything together and make sure you have a polished script. And then how I did it was I knew that I wasn't going to have my script wasn't going to be as strong as I would want it to be. But me being in the imagineNATIVE web series or the features lab, I knew that that would help me being like, hey, like it's not totally where it should be for a shooting script, but it's a work in progress and we're not going to shoot till spring 2023. And so it gave us a little bit of time um kind of keep polishing the script and making it the best script that it can, because you get one shot at making your first feature, and so you always want to make it as strong as possible. You're always going to make your mistakes and stuff like that. Like, I can't, like, I'm probably going to make mistakes on it that I'm like, when I done looking down the road and I'm like, hey, I've done 4 or 5 features now, it's like, oh yeah, I remember that when I first tried to, all those, beginner mistakes and stuff like that. So that's kind of how I would look at the talent to watch program, is like 2024, we're going to start now, make sure we have our pilot or a good solid first like features. And then, with the talent to watch, you don't, I mean, some people think $250,000 is a lot of money for a feature if you're if you're younger, but it's not. You can blow through that so fast, like it's easy. If you're on a big TV series, you can blow that budget within 2 days.
Yeah,
You're
for
trying
sure.
to do a whole feature. So what I usually do is with Lucky Strikes, it's like, okay, how many characters can we have? We'll do like a three characters, 4 characters that are our main characters that we're going to be following. And then what also kills you when you're shooting is locations. If you have a billion locations, you're going to be like, oh my God, I just wish I wrote, 6 locations. So for Lucky Strikes, we have like a bar, a bowling alley, 2 apartments, a park, like really easy, like accessible. I mean, the bowling alley is going to be a little bit of a tricky one, but you kind of like, that's kind of how you want to do it. That's why I always love when you look at like the Saws or these first filmmakers who did their movie and they were in like just a couple locations and it was just really about story and character. And you get to really be with these characters for a while. Those are really great movies, and it also helps you out budget wise.
Well, we don't know what we don't know. And working on a first feature, there's things you only know by stumbling through them. And
Yeah,
earlier on, you mentioned working with mentors, and having a great mentor or two will really help you foresee those roadblocks, especially when you have $250,000 to get you through a production. Can't really afford to be making mistakes because that's a few days of shooting you're not going to get back. So I'm curious how you found your mentors and what role they played, and just in general, how do people go about finding a mentor?
yeah. So honestly, I wouldn't be anywhere in my career without mentors, without people who've been through the ringer like that I have. And they honestly, you find someone who has the career that you want in 20 years, and you just ask them every question you can, because they'll help take off a couple of years on your career, and make you get there a little bit faster. And I've had some great mentors. People have done big series, and honestly, it's just through hard work. If you're out there, I always laugh if you're out there grinding and hustling and all that, like if you're out there just working hard, people are going to recognize that and want to work with you, and want to offer, within the Canadian industry. I haven't really met too many people that um don't, when you ask for help or ask for, and you value their time, have been very gracious. Like, and I've applied for a lot, and a lot of the mentors I've found have come through programs like through the NSI or imagineNATIVE's web series pitch features lab. um, and I think there was a producers lab back in the day. And so through these programs, they ask, more experienced filmmakers to come in and to kind of talk with everybody and give their advice. And kind of sometimes if you have a project, they get to, you get to be with a mentor, and kind of that's how I've done it. And reached out to people. Like oh, shoot, you reminded me, I gotta email someone back. But yeah, and when you have people that come in and talk to you in your programs, email them back. Like after every time they give you your email during the program, they be like, hey, yeah, I'm always open. They always say I'm always open to uh giving advice or talking. If you have any questions, and call them out on it. Be like, okay, I'm gonna email you, and those, generally most of them will email back, and if they're busy, they'll let you know and be like, hey, there's a good time for me, um and stuff like that. Because like I remember when I was in film school, I went to the Red Deer College, and there was a filmmaker named Lewa Nasruddin. He was kind of our guy who made it to Hollywood, and because he was working on, I think it was the Goldbergs at the time.
Okay.
And so the first couple seasons, and I remember him talking about, he's like being in the writer's room and they're talking about like the showrunner would come in and talk a little bit about his stories, and then they would come in and pitch stories and kind of write that episode. And I remember him talking about episodes that they were writing and they were airing at the same time. Like I was like, I just watched that episode last night. And um yeah, and so like, emailed him after that, and he was gracious to give me, watch one of my student films. And um I thought it was great, and he was like, it's good, you got some growing to do, but have fun, keep her going, and eventually you'll get there. And that's what I did. I was a little bit like, come on, man, I'm ready for Hollywood right now. And it's like, I'm so not.
It's a slog,
I'm
yeah. It's
so
a
not
long
like,
and winding road.
yeah, like there was like that there was like, it takes 10 years to be overnight success, but it's like it takes so long to learn the craft. Like I remember when I was, because I started in the industry as an actor, and I was like, I want to lead, I want to be the leading person, and be the number one on the call sheet. And I eventually got there, and ended up hosting a couple shows. And I'm, thank goodness I didn't get that right off the bat, because there's a whole skill, like you have to learn how to, there's talent, but then there's also like, you have to learn how to, make sure that you're prepping the right way. You can have like, you're able to like lead the episode, make sure you go home and then you're learning the lines for the next day. And you know how to conduct yourself. Like there's all these skills that you can't like just like skill and talent can't have. It's just experience, right?
Right.
Right. Like my next, I'm trying like I'm in the web series and the talent to watch world, but I'm trying to make that jump to the showrunner world where I'm creating TV series and running TV series and stuff like that. And at one point, you know, probably a year ago, I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do it in 5 years. I still think I can do it in quite, you know, pretty quickly, but there's a lot more because I have now I have experience in bigger rooms. It's like, oh, I've got some learning to do. I got a lot of watching and just, you know, going through the trenches to because every level you get to, you know, you're gonna have to like you're like, oh, I got into the TV series world. Okay, now I gotta start at the bottom and then work my way up. Okay, I got out of Canada, I got to Hollywood. Okay, you're gonna have to work your way up, right? And you know, it's been a great experience. And so yeah, mentors are a great one for that one. To kind of ask for advice and never be afraid to ask for advice and be like, hey man, I don't know what I'm doing. Can you help me out
Yeah.
on this one? And you know, and people are generally pretty happy to help you out.
Yeah, and people feel like if they don't have all the answers, they can seem amateur or unprepared. But especially in the entertainment industry, if you don't have the answer and you go ahead and make a dumb decision, that can cost a lot of time and money, right? So people respect if you can just come to them and say, I don't know, could you tell me how to do this properly?
Yeah, exactly. You never want to go down that road and be like, oh my God, yeah, you never want to cost money. Like
Yeah.
that's always the biggest one because you don't have it. Like with our budgets, there is no more money at the end of it. And you don't want your ego to get in the way, be like, oh man. And it's, I mean, you probably don't want to say, I don't know, but you're like, let me find that out for you. Let me figure it out. Because I don't have the answer right now, but I will have the answer for you in a little bit. And that kind of generally it shows that you have that humility to be able to say that I don't have all the answers, but I'm going to go find it out. I always found people were like, oh yeah, you know, like I know what I'm doing, and it's like you're because if you're a writer or a director, uh, and you're working with a crew, like most of them go from show to show to show, so the crew generally has more experience than a director being on set. You know, and so like let's say Lucky Strikes, for example, we're crewing up right now, and I'm my biggest goal was like, okay, who are the people I have to talk to every day? DOP, AD, gaffer, and heads of departments. And I was like, how can I get the best heads of departments that I can get with the budget that we have that would be open to like supporting me and have more experience than me. They're able going to be able to like give me that advice. Like my AD, I think he's worked with like Roger Deakins or something like that, like
Yeah.
filmmakers. And we're talking with the producer, and I was like, he's the one I like because we've worked together in the past on and he's worked on my other web series and stuff like that. We've been talking about the show, and I was like, I want him because he's a director's AD and he has all that experience. So if I'm gonna make a mistake, like, and he can kind of like, you know, give me that like, hey, maybe you want to do it from this angle, and here's why. Because he has that experience of like 30 years in the industry, you know, and you know, he just wants to take it easy on a nice, you know, comedy about bowling. And my buddy, our DOP, he's a fast DOP, and we've worked together on docu-series. And I remember when I was sitting there going, okay, we had this crazy scene with kids and there was like there were sculpting stuff and we had like three characters that we had to cover, and it was a nuts scene. And so I was able to like he was able to work with me a little bit and was like, hey, I was like, here's all the shots that I need. And he's like, okay, we should do these shots first and then like do the kids first and then we'll cover the adults because we're gonna lose these kids quickly. And it's just like they once you support yourself with those kinds of like people who really support you and you know and you're okay to being like, hey, like sometimes I'm gonna get stuck if you have and that's just gonna make your project better, you know. So yeah, no, it's awesome. Yeah.
So, with all the knowledge you've accumulated over your career, if you could jump back 10 years and talk to yourself breaking into the industry, what would you tell yourself to do differently? How would you get ahead a little bit faster, more efficiently?
I tell myself to stop acting. No, it's like I know this is a horrible thing to say, but like I find like there's different ways to cut. Is that a weird way to say it? There's different ways to cut the cheese. I don't know.
Slice it?
slice the cheese, you know,
Sure.
because it's like it all depends on what you want to do in the industry. Like I inevitably wanted to do lots of comedy, and I like writing and directing and acting. And so when I first got into the industry, I kind of just wanted to be an actor. And the you can do the I always find auditioning super hard, and kind of like it just you kind of get burnt out a little bit. And yeah, when I first started, I was just auditioning, and it'd be like, you're so close, shortlisted, this and that, and then you just never get it, and you're like, oh man. And back, I think I started in 2012, which I think it was a couple like 11, 12 years ago. We weren't in we didn't have the diversity in the industry like we have today, like the stories that we have. So looking at me now, I'm white, I'm white passing, and when they were writing stories, it was like, I have a beard right now, and I can explain that. Oh no, I can't, because that's a spoiler. No, can't tell you why I got a beard.
Sure.
Unlike Easter eggs. But we just didn't have the diversity of roles that we have today, and so I was getting really like, oh man, dejected, because you're like, I'll never like you. It was probably a long shot for me to get casted in this one, and so I would have done the Issa Rae way of doing it. Like I would have just started making stuff. If I like I and that's what I do now. I just make stuff. Like I'm about to do a shoot this weekend for I think $1,000, and it's just me and my friends, and we're just gonna grab a camera, and we're gonna go act in a sketch that I made at the second I wrote the one of my second city classes. And that's what I would have done. Wish I would have done sooner. Like every other weekend, been shooting something and cutting it together and writing it, directing it, cutting it together, and then just like mass producing, you know, um, projects. And then that's where you get lots of experience. You're like, okay, like, because if you're auditioning every day, you might get a couple roles a year. So you might get on set a couple times. But if you're doing it yourself, you can be on set as many times as you want, and learning those skills and being like, oh, okay, that like, okay, so my when they always say give it, actors are always like give it 100% in all it takes. But if it's like an emotional scene, and the cameras are not on you, you can save it for your close up a little bit, and then so you're not burnt out when. So like those kind of like small, you know techniques that you can like when I was with at the Red Deer College, we call it tools in the toolbox. And so it give you that experience. It's like, oh, and then once you make a name for yourself, you get to control that a little bit. Like look at Issa Rae, and I think she just signed an 8-figure deal for 5 years. Like congrats, like amazing, right? And then there's like Danny McBride and his friends, and then the It's Always Sunny. I'm listening to their podcast, and they're like, yeah, like they were exactly going through the same thing, where they were auditioning, like, man, we should just try to do this stuff. And they're like, we had no idea what we're doing, and eventually we found out, figured it out. And so 5 years I would tell myself to start, find a crew of writers, directors, and people I like to collaborate with that are at the same kind of level as me. And all we would do is make shorts and be kind of like mini YouTubers, and then work our way up and learn the funding system. And then because I went to film school, and the greatest thing for film school is it gave me a year to just learn how to act. But then I wasted my second year because it was all correspondence, and I
Uh,
I didn't make one film. And I was like, I shoot myself, because it's like I should have made 20 films during my last year of film school. But I think I went back to I was in Red Deer, and then I went back to Edmonton, and I think I just wrote one short, and I didn't film anything, and then kind of wasted it a little bit. But I mean, you learn your mistakes, right? Like everyone's got their own journey, and everyone's going to get there in a different way. And so I eventually got there, to an extent. I have my feature, and then I got a web series coming up, and my mini shorts and stuff, and pitching out bigger series and stuff. So, but yeah, always be filming. Like that's the way to do it. Like because if depending on what way you look at it, like uh, the YouTubers are always filming, so they're always creating that content and getting that experience and gaining that audience. But if you're an actor and your only way in is through auditions, then you're not gaining that recognition and that audience. And that experience on set that the YouTubers have, and so it kind of puts you at a disadvantage. So I'm always like, film.
Yeah, you got to get those reps in, right?
Yeah.
The repetition. You can even go back and see your favorite YouTuber and see the work they're doing
Yeah.
5 years ago, and it's such a drop off from where they're at, right? You can see them be awkward on camera, and you just see how smooth and effortless it becomes, but they do it hundreds and hundreds of times, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of the big, as I got older in life, it's the power. I mean, probably sound like a self-help person now, but it's the power of compounding. I think someone said it's like if like 18 minutes a day, and then take a year, you're like, how many percent better than when you first started. And that's was the same with writing. Like as an actor, I was like, oh, I don't see the roles that I want to play. So then I had to learn how to write to then now I get like I used to not really get excited about auditions. And now I'm like, I wrote a really ridiculous part for me in Lucky Strikes because I was like, I want to be a bathroom attendant actor who's just an aspiring actor and like the ridiculousness and stuff like that. And I get really excited about it. Like I unfortunately I had an audition this week, but they were filming at the same time Lucky Strikes, so I couldn't do it. But then I was okay with not doing it because I was like, you know what, I got this other really funny, crazy role that I'm excited for. And so you get to do what you want to do a little bit. It gives you a little bit, it takes the creative process and puts it back into your pot into your hands. But again, that's not for everybody. It's really hard. It's going to be a lot of ups and downs. You're going to see some of your friends probably get big roles, maybe get casted and stuff, and that's okay. It's not a competition. Like my friend just got casted in a really amazing series, and I'm so stoked for him. And we're going to work together, probably on my next show. So, no, and everyone, it's great to see, your friends succeed and stuff like that.
Yeah, you're just increasing the odds. Somebody breaks through and they take you along with them, or vice versa, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so before I let you go, why don't you tell me about some of the projects you have coming up?
Yeah, so I got Lucky Strikes, which is a bowling comedy about two friends trying to buy a bowling alley. Their dad's old bowling alley, and how indigenous their old childhood rival comes back, who's a real estate developer who tries to stop them so they can build a big condo.
It's a
So
perfect movie villain.
yeah, exactly. And they're trying to, stop it and stop the gentrification of their neighborhood. It is just super, super dumb and funny. And so they challenge him to a bowling tournament. And a winner take all craziness. So think like dodgeball meets like Dumb and Dumber. So that's Lucky Strikes. And then I have a new uh comedy. I don't know if I have another comedy web series coming out. That we're going to film next year. I don't know if I can talk too much about it. I don't think it's been announced. So, but I do have another web series, like kind of like I did a web series 2 years ago called DJ Barbanic, which is about two cousin musicians trying to make it big in the music scene, and they decide that the music video is going to make them that's going to be their rise to fame, and they do everything they're not supposed to try to make that music video, by like getting arrested to having to do charity strip dances to get their stolen gear back. Like it's ridiculous. And so my next web series is kind of following a similar, it's about a neighborhood, um and the craziness that happens in the neighborhood. Like everyone has crazy neighborhood stories, and so I'm really excited about that. And then I'm trying to get I have a television series called The Friendship Center, and it's based on my experience growing up in the friendship centers in Calgary and Edmonton. And
Mhm.
so we have that one that we're trying to get off the ground. But other than that, I think just a lot of development, just trying to get some stuff off the ground, and finally put the pen to pad, and kind of come up with those new ideas. Because I always say you gotta have like, don't put all your eggs in one basket, and have a couple irons in the fire, and because one of them may get hot, and
Yeah.
then that's the one you got to go with, because that's kind of what happened with Lucky Strikes. It was the one that got hot, and I was like, hey, we got to go with it. And then the web series kind of, it was another one that got hot, and so we just got to have lots in the burner.
Yeah, got to maximize your opportunities to be successful, right?
Yeah, exactly. You can't it's always funny, like when with writers, it's like you can't be working on one thing for 10 years. You got to, you got to be working on you know, kind of everything. Like, you know, if you go to a pitch meeting, they're like, yeah, we're not really looking for something like that. You got to be like, oh, well, I have this. Oh, what about this? Oh, what about this? And, you know, basically till they kick you out of the room and be like, hey, we just got to get out. We're out of time here, you know? So, um, and it's fun because like it's like if you're working on one project and then you're stuck on this one, you can go work on another project, and that's what happened with Lucky Strikes too. I got stuck a couple times, and I was able to start working on another project, and it kind of solved the problems that I was having while I was writing Lucky Strikes, and I was like, oh, that's what I should do with Lucky Strikes. Um, and so yeah, I was just I mean, it's really, it really turned out. Like I was really happy with how the script turned out, and I'm excited for the audiences to see it because yeah, it's ridiculous. I don't, it's so ridiculous.
Well, I'm looking forward to checking it out, and I'm excited to. I'd love to have you back, and we can talk about it when you have one of your films or web series drops. Hit me up.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
how can people follow you, and how can they support your work?
Um, I had it. I guess e-transfer is a thing up in Canada. Eh? We don't have Venmo, and
I don't think
no,
so.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, I mean, all my social medias are Darcy Waite. My last name Waite, and yeah, I guess a lot of my stuff right now is on APTN. A lot of my hosted stuff, a lot of my game shows, my web series DJ Burnt Panic is on Lumion. Yeah, like keep following and keep following this crazy journey. Because it's I mean, you know, I'd probably be another 30 years till I'm done. So yeah,
Sounds great. Okay, thank you so much for your time, and I look
thanks for
forward to
having me.
checking
This
out
was
everything you
fun.
do.
Yes, thanks for having me. This is awesome. Thank you.
Awesome.